Good afternoon, everybody. This is Lorraine, Alternative Homesteading, on May 22, 2026. And thank you, everybody, for the congratulations on my having survived living in Kentucky for almost 7 years. 7 years of harassment, vandalism, torture, pet theft, pet murder, slander, defamation, organized crime network, including the Jackson County PVA, Little Bobby Edwards, the magistrate, Little Danny Toddler. That's it, get these names right. Little Bobby Edward, not Robert, Bobby, Little Bobby Edwards, Little Danny Toddler, and the county lawyer that nobody can stand. Nobody can stand this guy's gut. Nobody I speak to likes this guy. Everybody I speak to cannot stand his guts, yet he's still here. But yes, thank you for the congratulations on my ability to having survived 7 years here, being tortured by this local organized crime network. The poopynurse.com, her poopy family, the Bow Wow family, Jezebel with the blue flashing lights on, giving me a pregnant cat. I wonder how much he got paid for that. The veterinarian, Dr. Rebecca Caleb-Wilson, who refuses to give me a veterinarian appointment because I'm, quote unquote, not friends with her friends. The hundreds of dead animals that have been left on my property, the torture of my animals, the covert experimentation of my animals and me, the vandalism, the ongoing vandalism, the property mobbing, the strip mining of my property, the harassment, the coercion of local government. Thank you for the condolences. So under those circumstances, and it's still torrential downpour here, and I'm really pissed off. Why am I pissed off? We needed the rain. We absolutely needed the rain. However, just a couple of days ago, I hired somebody to help me rake all the leaves around the property. I've got piles of leaves that needed to be burned. Well, guess what? It rained for 2 days on top of all the leaves I've got stacked up all over the place. It's going to take a while now for them to dry out. But at least they're not covered all over the property. And I can now see where all the damage that these criminals have done to the land. But I'm going to continue to read police involvement in organized stalking and microwave attacks. So I'm starting up on page 14. I read until page 14, in the middle of page 14 yesterday. Thank you all for listening and watching and commenting. Author A.K. Forward, who, by the way, I've read a book on my channel. I think I have 4 or even 5 videos reading from his book. I highly recommend. And it's Forwood. There are many within the police forces and elsewhere who are corrupt and whose ideologies are completely in line with those who ultimately control and direct the activities of these gang stalking groups. During a TV interview, Police Lieutenant Larry Richard admitted organized stalking is an issue. However, he is the exception of an officer. Let me just scroll. Of an officer taking a complainant seriously. Below is a tip of the iceberg concerning police involvement, obfuscation, tampering with victims' reports, like here in Jackson County, Kentucky, and Manalapan, New Jersey, a home I lived in for 30 years as original owner, and other wrongdoings regarding the above crime. Oh, did I tell you that the Manalapan Police Department, the hockey club, they decided they were all going to defecate in my backyard. It must be one of those Freemasonic humiliation rituals. I wasn't humiliated, but they should be. They actually laughed when I reported it. They thought it was funny. Reverend Dr. Millicent Black discusses her harassment by local police, including a psychiatric reprisal in Mount Pleasant, Columbia. Former United Nations employee Liliana De Luca says the police gaslighted her after reporting harassment crimes. Targeted journalist Janet Phelan says police physically assaulted her, and I believe that Janet Phelan is no longer with us. Nobody's mentioned it. Nobody's really talking about it, but I believe that a couple of months ago, she passed away. Neuroscientist Dr. Matthew Aaron speaks of stalking and harassment by Vancouver police in Canada, believing his perpetrators were possibly part of a sizable satanic cult operating in the area. Journalist and broadcaster DJ Chris discussed his targeting by the Sheriff's Department in his Targeted Trilogy audiobook. NSA whistleblower Karen Stewart confirms that police are participating in these crimes via entrapment operations. I don't know why this guy didn't interview me. Arizona human rights activist Midge Mathis, that's not her real name, by the way. Her real name is Doris Klaus. I started getting stalked and harassed daily, which continues to this day, nearly 4 years later. Games played by police departments, reports altered, destroyed, or not reported at all. I can attest to exactly what she's saying as having happened to me in New Jersey and in Kentucky. Cancer specialist Dr. Arnold Lokshin discusses his family's targeting by both police and the FBI in his book Silent Terror. Ultimately, he fled the USA for safety reasons, and now he's in Russia. Isn't that amazing? Edward Snowden's in Russia too. It can't be a hell of a lot worse than here in the USA. I mean, if one of the biggest whistleblowers in history, Edward Snowden, can seek refuge in Russia all these years and still survive, it can't be that bad there, can it? I mean, if he were here, imagine what would happen. Physician Dr. Len Baer reported the offenses to law enforcement, but they failed to investigate. Dr. Baer has medical proof of microwave injuries from directed energy weapon attacks, and in his book, Bad Wolf, VOLF, former Florida police officer John Mark Dugan recounts his stalking and harassment from the Sheriff's Department and the FBI after he exposed police and judicial corruption. Fearing for his life, he also eventually sought political asylum in Russia. Everybody's going to Russia. Russia. Everybody from the U.S., all the whistleblowers are moving to Russia. And they're surviving. They're living there. No problemo. Author Dr. Corkin Cherubini, he's got some good books. Yeah, he's got some good books. Describes the police vehicularly stalking him in his book Gang Stalking: The Threat to Humanity. U.S. military veteran Michael Barden documents numerous incidents on his YouTube channel of police harassing and stalking him, and Gerald Sosby, a former lawyer, judge, professor, and FBI special agent, states both police and the FBI attacked him with microwave weapons. In his notarized affidavit, retired medical technologist Dominic Ruggiero from Arizona describes harassment and death threats from a local sheriff. U.S. inventor James Walbert cites local police involvement in his torment. Lawyer Ray Schumann obtained a restraining order for his client against a stalker in California, and the culprit informed the court that the police told him to harass the victim. In his notarized affidavit, Minnesota resident Robert Wood cites that Fairfield police inaccurately transcribed his initial police report, and after he confronted them about it, they corrected it. Well, that didn't happen here. After I confronted them about it, they did not correct anything here, nor in Manalapan, New Jersey. They did not correct anything. No. Illinois resident Corey Ramirez states that police refused to investigate the numerous harassment crimes she reported. In her notarized affidavit, Ohio resident Talina Simpson writes that Cincinnati police are involved in my gang stalking. Texan resident Shannon Farr's affidavit mentions police involvement too, and in his notarized affidavit, California citizen Paul Gauge states that the police did nothing to help. Now I'm going to add, because it's not mentioned here, that Helena Chorba in Pennsylvania, retired civil engineer, was also harassed by police when she did not want to accept a date by this married copper hitting on her. Because she rebuked his advances, he placed her on the watch list. And yes, the Manalapan Police Department, not all of them, a group of them, were harassing me when I lived at 52 Sutton Drive, Manalapan, New Jersey, a home I lived in for 30 years as original owner, and that was the chief of police, Michael Fountain, who's not there anymore. And the two criminals that are still there, the two criminals that are still there, oh my goodness, my goodness, I'm blanking out now. I'll come back to it. Yeah, the two criminals that are, there are more than two. There's the Sergeant Carey. Sergeant Carey is a criminal. Yes, Sergeant Carey. I'm sure he's a Freemason too. And then there was it'll come back to me. It's escaping me. Florida police blundered in their stalking and harassment of an innocent Indian River County resident in 2018. Well, here in Jackson County, Kentucky, we've got Sheriff Daniel Isaac, who allows his family members to drop poopy diapers in front of my mailbox. He allows family members to ignite grenades on my property as he stands by and watches in the driveway. He also, as I'm in the middle of moving here, the self-entitled piece of crap, before he was a sheriff, he was a deputy, he decides he's going to move into my property when the former owner passed away, use the outer field for his horses, tear it up unmercifully, and then as I'm moving here, he still has his horses there. I move here, he still has his horses there. And then he just, in the middle of the night, picks up his horses and leaves. No payment, no restitution, no nothing. No thank you for letting me use the property. Self-entitled crap. Oh, and he fails to document any of the vandalism here. Fails, never sends anyone here to photograph the vandalism, as if it didn't happen. A gentleman had reported a burglary the previous week, and afterward neighbors alerted him that the police were entering his house when he was out. A security camera inside his residence taped the police intrusion, filmed the officers disabling security cameras on his porch. You know who did that to me? The Manalapan Police Department. They disabled the security cameras on my porch. But fortunately, they forgot about the upstairs cameras. Yeah, they forgot about those upstairs cameras filming everything outside, including the officer's vehicle that was parked on the driveway for half an hour. Yeah, and I wasn't there. A U.S. murder victim, Ahmaud Arbery, complained of being stalked and harassed by police, local officials, and members of the public before his murder. Arbery was alleged to be quote-unquote mentally ill, according to some and all of those employed by the same employers as the gangs that murdered him. Gang stalkers are all official sources who work for the state system. That goes for, like, all my neighbors, the whole Bow Wow family, the criminals next door that tore out my gate, the other criminal up the block that stole my gate after I paid him $90 to get it out of the ground, and then he stole my two antique auto chassis, and then has the audacity to tell me that the law told him he cannot give them back. So the law told him it's okay to steal from me. Yeah, that was Chris Bowles. I'm sure your family, your children, you are the pillar of the community. Did you tell your children what a thief you are, that you steal from senior citizens? What a thief. Go tell your children what a piece of crap you are. Yeah. Oh, but the law told me that I could do it. Really? Okay. In Pinellas County, James Mylinis and Greg Pound accused local police of corruption and stood against the local sheriff in 2016 election. For doing so, they received various forms of retaliation from the sheriff's office, which included stalking, fabricated charges, and psychiatric reprisals. A family in Wisconsin trying to investigate the suspicious death of their relative, who was shot dead by police while allegedly sleeping in his car, say they fear a cover-up and complain of stalking and harassment by local police. And, the civil rights lawyer, he speaks out about all of these kinds of cases. In the UK, physicist Dr. Catherine Horton states that Manchester police tried to run a mental health entrapment on her after reporting a directed energy weapon attack. She says that officers lied and they refused her police report. Debbie Hicks, a UK school teacher who participated in numerous anti-lockdown demonstrations, opined that local police stalked her. Retired schoolteacher Mary Marvin complained of vehicular stalking by Derbyshire police. Speaking on the Richie Allen Show, Shane Gibbs gives details of his harassment from police in the London area. The affidavit of former M15 officer Andrea Davison outlines harassment and threats of entrapment from the police in reprisal for her investigations into elite pedo networks. M15 approached Liverpool businessman Philip Kerr to become an informant, but he refused. In retaliation, M15 stalked, electronically harassed, and conspired with local police to run an entrapment operation against him. Human rights activist Alison Smith obtained a police crime number after reporting harassment, but they failed to investigate. Well, I find that to be ironic because, to the best of my knowledge, they're still investigating the skinned dead animal that was dumped on my driveway and dripping from my mailbox here in Jackson County, Kentucky. Yeah. Biomedical scientist Tim Enhol informs me that London's Metropolitan Police have committed stalking and harassment offenses against him. He photographed a car vehicularly stalking him in 2022 and posted it on social media. The vehicle's registration number is not in the UK government's vehicle licensing database. Presumably, it was a police or M15 surveillance car. Former soldier Andy Lewis resigned as national publicist from the Gulf's Veterans Association National Committee in 1997. He campaigned for medical treatment for UK soldiers in the Gulf War who became ill after receiving experimental jabbies. As a reprisal for his activism, Lewis became a target of M15 and North Wales police, stating, "I had a meeting with a solicitor, Mark McKee, and a senior partner from law firm in Manchester to discuss taking legal action against North Wales police due to a vast array of Stasi-esque covert harassment and intimidation operations that I was experiencing because I was campaigning for Iraq war veterans. I warned that North Wales had a very extensive pedophile ring that involved secret societies and dozens, if not hundreds, of police officers and people in positions of authority across all government agencies, including politicians, which I would later discover for myself. And I was told that North Wales police had become a force unto themselves, and that they had gone, quote unquote, off the charts. And I was advised against taking legal action against them unless I wanted to wear a bulletproof vest for the rest of my life." Police prosecuted for organized stalking and related crimes. Oh, I'm so glad he's talking about this. In 2018, 3 Canadian police officers were found guilty of 9 harassment-related offenses concerning a lady whose ex-husband hired them to stalk her. In a small town in Iowa, officials charged police for stalking women alongside various other acts of criminality in 2022. The eBay corporate stalking case, one of my favorites, right? One of my favorites here, involved former police officers. It's an excellent example of how corporations use harassment techniques against critics and whistleblowers. The elderly couple in Boston wrote a critical article about the company in an online business journal. Their report infuriated the eBay board and led to a vicious revenge campaign, allegedly approved by the chief executive, Devin Wenig. However, he denies knowledge of the operation. Oh, yes. The couple complained of being followed on journeys, postal harassment, death threats, and receiving threatening messages on Twitter. Some directors have received jail sentences. Former police captain and eBay security manager Philip Cook received a prison sentence of 18 months for his role in the intense stalking campaign against the couple. eBay's former senior director of safety and security, James Baugh, received a 5-year sentence for his involvement. Baugh's previous employment was with the FBI as a special agent and a contractor. He stated, "I did the illegal, unethical, psychological operations oriented stalking because I was trained to do it at the FBI." I remember this was his excuse when he gave testimony. He said, "But I was only doing what I was trained to do by the FBI." Okay, that's not a good excuse. Like, I was trained to do certain things when I was studying for my master's degree and for my certified drug and alcohol counseling. I had to answer questions that were patently false by providing false information, false answers in order to pass the exams that I knew were patently false. But, that's not how that's not how you operate in the real world. FBI investigator Mark Wilson's affidavit showed that the eBay directors were considering using organized crime gangs and that's the investigator, by the way, Mark Wilson. I need you to testify on my behalf. Mark Wilson, if you're still working for the FBI, please contact me. FBI investigator Mark Wilson's I have plenty of evidence. You won't have to do any of the work. All you'll have to do is testify with the evidence and arrest all of my local government. And you will get a promotion, I promise. I promise you'll get a promotion here. Yes, absolutely. Oh, and yes. Oh my goodness, I've got aerial views for you. So much. I've got great stuff for you. You can definitely prosecute the entire neighborhood here. Yes. So in one of these meetings, Baugh displayed a photograph of what he said were members of a Samoan gang. Baugh said, in substance, that if the distraction campaign didn't work, he would send the gang to the victim's home, that they were not good guys, and that whatever happened would be out of Baugh's control. And this was testimonial by an FBI investigator, Mark Wilson. He testified on behalf of the couple, the eBay couple. So yes, Mr. Wilson, please, you gave a stellar testimony. I read it. I want you to testify on my behalf here in Jackson County, Kentucky. Please contact me. Do the police and intelligence services officially run the stalking networks? Or is it a network of rogue officers? Nowadays, with the availability of high-tech surveillance, it is implausible to believe that some actors in government do not sanction these offenses and that they cannot quickly apprehend the culprits. It shows official police complicity. Even if a victim moves to a different address or seeks refuge abroad to escape the targeting, the harassment follows them there. proving that these criminal groups have networked globally. But from what I hear, it's different in different cities and states, and that everybody that has moved away from Kentucky has it better wherever they're living now. Footage recently emerged of a Canadian police officer informing a victim of organized stalking that it occurs, and that he will be on a federal watch list wherever he goes. Strong evidence suggests that victims' names are on watch lists shared between various country police and intelligence services. Sadiq Long is suing the police in America after an officer told him that his car number plate is on a terrorist database. Long discusses his vehicular stalking and harassment by law enforcement in January 2023 interview with The Intercept, which is a magazine, The Intercept. One can assume that innocent citizens are deliberately put on these watch lists to inflate the latter, to boost the coffers of the police, intelligence services, and their contractors to fleece the taxpayers and receive grants. One reason the government is consistently alarming us with threats of extremism is money. It's always about the money. Security, national security. It's a multi-billion-dollar revenue generator for the national security racketeering network and private security companies run by former ex-federal employees. According to former M15 agent Carl Clark, those running the harassment networks in the UK are the intelligence agencies plus 300 to 400 small secret service companies that former police officers or secret service workers founded. Oh yes, I can tell you as a fact. And I used to attend a lot of the Manalapan town meetings, because I was a concerned citizen. I was an involved citizen. So I remember them telling us that they were going to reduce some of the police force to cut expenses, because a lot of our property taxes go to the coppers, right? And we didn't have a lot of crime there. Most of the crime there was kind of, it wasn't the kind of crime that you get in lower class neighborhoods. Somebody's broke into a car, somebody stole a bike that was in a driveway, things like that. So I remember them saying, well, yes, we cut the police department by, I think it was like 3 or 4 officers. But they failed to mention where those officers were going. They failed to mention that the historically once-a-year fee, not once a year, the historically one-time fee to register your house alarm system, one-time fee when you report it, was now going to be on an annual basis, and that those police officers were now running a company to monitor all of those alarm systems. Yes. In another state, by the way. They failed to mention that small detail. So Professor Karlstrom concurs, nearly 100% of gang stalking involves current and retired police, military, intelligence, and security personnel violating the law. And I'm going to add that they retain their security clearances when they should not. And they use those security clearances to obtain quick new employment as a stalker, as a gang stalker, and also perform nefarious searches. Regarding the harassment of Philip Kerr, Carl Clark states that the invasive things done to Philip are standard operating procedure, but M15 also used the police, special branch, and their sources to harass victims. Clark confesses he knows their techniques. I was a source for special branch and M15 in 1992 through 2005, and I saw all of these used in my time with them. One of the reasons why the UK and America's police intelligence services and private security organizations pose a significant threat to civil rights is due to the web of formal and informal connections among the various federal, state, and local agencies, contractor firms, and private associations. Like the fusion centers and Homeland Security and InfraGard. InfraGard is the private army of my favorite Bureau of Instigation. A revolving door pattern of employment allows former coppers and agents to work variously as private investigators or contractors for government or corporate entities, and to take their classified information, their skills, and connections with them. The large number of different but sometimes connected public and private security entities and jurisdictions greatly obscures, from the public's perspective, analysis of the identity of the perpetrators of rogue intelligence agency crimes, such as the FBI's COINTELPRO operations and vigilante operations by the Red Squads. Now, this subheading is how law enforcement uses directed energy weapons. And don't let them ever tell you that they don't, because they do. They definitely do in Manalapan. In fact, they erected an entire new building in Manalapan next to the police department. I think they created their own fusion center there with their new energy weapon, all their weapons and stuff. And they had all new vehicles and stuff. There was nothing wrong with the old vehicles, but by the time I left, they had all these brand new, spanking new cars. In the 1980s, peaceful female protesters outside of a U.S. military base in Berkshire, England, organized a peace camp in opposition to the installation's housing of nuclear weapons. A 1986 report in The Guardian reported that dozens of the campaigners spoke of being attacked by electronic weapons. At least 40 women at different locations around the 9-mile perimeter of the American base experienced similar symptoms simultaneously. That is not a coincidence. Their symptoms included a headache, dizziness, difficulties of concentration, or memory. Dr. Barry Trower, who is an expert in directed energy weapons and a former M15 employee, confirms the latter is true. He also states that the UK government microwaved Catholics in Northern Ireland during its conflict. Today's police and surveillance networks can access directed energy weapons, according to Boston-based journalist Romola D., who became a victim of police entrapment in 2022. She has regularly reported gang stalking and microwave weapon attacks against herself and others, stating local law cannot assert lack of knowledge of these weapon systems, technologies, or crimes, since they're fully involved. And guess where Romola is right now? She's in the Worcester, I can't pronounce it, Worcester, Massachusetts mental hospital since November of last year. Yeah. You know why? Her neighbor reported her. I don't know about you guys, but when I walk outside, sometimes I have my phone with me, sometimes I don't. I photograph things on my property. Sometimes I'm talking into my phone. Sometimes I'm hands-free, as you can see on my videos. So Romola walks out with her phone, and her neighbor automatically reports her for photographing them when she was not. And the neighbors are really close where she lives. Like, in New Jersey, the neighbors are close, but there's at least land on both sides of the properties that meet in the center in New Jersey that separate the houses. But where Romola lives, they are so close together. So then her neighbor gets a restraining order, and then Romola goes to walk to her damn mailbox and gets reported again for violating it. She can't even walk to the mailbox, her own mailbox, without being reported by this criminal informant neighbor. And that's why she's where she is. And of course, in 2022, she was a victim of a police entrapment operation. And I'm sure her neighbors are part of the criminal informant operation. Documents released by WikiLeaks stated that defense contractors sold directed energy weapons to many police forces worldwide, and that they have been operationally tested and deployed since 2014. In a Freedom of Information request, London Metropolitan Police refused to confirm or deny the use of microwave radiation in law enforcement. It's used by their civilian surveillance operatives working under contract SS3/16/68 for Reed specialist recruitment, and would enable the public to understand and challenge our decisions. Well, and I know as a fact that the Department of Defense, because I'm on their mailing list, DOD has a mailing list. You can get on the mailing list and find out. They will often auction their old equipment. They hold auctions for their old equipment that you can bid on. Yeah, and I would imagine that the towns with the most money can get some of that old equipment, because, our tax dollars are always hard at work buying new equipment that we don't need. As early as 1986, reports claim that several American police forces conducted trials, quote unquote, with infrared sound generators mounted on the back of trucks. A February 1993 BBC report revealed that the FBI used EM pulse weapons against David Koresh's Branch Davidians during the standoff in Waco. In 2022, Australian police fired directed energy weapons at demonstrators in Sydney. News reports stated that victims reported burns, nausea, headaches, irregular heartbeat, and ear ringing. Police attacked protesters at the 2009 G20 summit in Pittsburgh with the LRAD device, causing severe hearing damage to a local professor who subsequently won a lawsuit against the city of Pittsburgh. And that's where Helena Chorba lived. She lived around that area. Retired civil engineer. More recently, Seattle police used the LRAD weapon against demonstrators in 2020. U.S.-based digital and audio forensic expert Amy Holm states that police and fusion centers receive the names of watchlisted victims from the FBI. So the FBI is always involved. They are the ones that maintain the watch list. They're the ones that load the names onto the watch list. So you cannot... So the FBI is full of crap when they can't confirm or deny that you're on the list. Okay? From there, they target and harass them using different types of technologies through either drones, planes, satellite systems connected to air or air missile defense systems, or air-to-surface, air-to-ground, ground-to-ground vehicles. The next subject, community policing. Oh, this is everybody's favorite, right? The COPS program. I call them criminals on patrol. I've got a lot of acronyms. The COPS is the criminals on patrol. LOPS is the losers on patrol. POPS are the perpetrators, the predators, the pedophiles on patrol. The MOPS, the morons and matrons on patrol. The WOPS, the witches on patrol. Oh no, the list is endless. I've got like a whole list. So, journalist Susie Dawson believes the criminality derives from higher echelons of the military-industrial complex, the arms manufacturers and state actors, down to the vast network of corporate intelligence agencies, private investigators, and retired police officers under the guise of community policing. And I would say that Karen Stewart mentions the exact same thing. Whistleblower Brian Coffin, a former SIS security specialist in the USA, articulates a similar viewpoint. So does Karen Stewart. To the best of my knowledge, she mentions the fusion centers, Most of the fusion centers are disseminating the slander campaigns. Community-based policing is a policy focusing on building relationships and working closely with communities, cozying up the community to spy on them for control. And it's accelerating worldwide. It's very crafty. Law enforcement types realize that under the community policing rubric, cops, community groups, local companies, private foundations, citizen informants like my neighbors, the Bow Wow family and the criminals next door, and federal agencies could form alliances without causing a public outcry. That's because people are not aware of how many people are involved and what they do, and they get paid under the table gift cards. Or they have their property taxes removed, and you can't find their names or addresses online, only mine. Even though they're not 65 and older yet. Numerous organizations in both public and private sectors have these operations. For example, new community-based policing includes organizations like InfraGard, Neighborhood Watch, and Citizen Corps. The latter's remit is to harness the power of every individual through education, training, and volunteer service to make communities safer, stronger, and better prepared to respond to the threats of terrorism, crime, public health issues, and disasters of all kinds through preparing the public for local risks with targeted outreach. Engaging voluntary organizations to help augment resources for public safety, preparedness and response capabilities, integrating the whole community and non-traditional resources to ensure disaster preparedness. Can I throw up now? What a crock of BS. All of these people involved in this are perpetrating misdemeanors and felony, stalking, harassment, theft, murder against innocent people for profit. They are the delusional psychopaths. These community groups are likely targeted for infiltration purposes by the police and intelligence services. Yeah, because they're so stupid. They're so stupid. That anybody with a fake badge or has a prior copper history, they come into the community and everybody is like, oh, what can I do to help you? Because they're such losers in their own lives. They will suck up to anybody. They're suck-ups. A bunch of sheep suck-ups. Therefore, with the merger of fusion centers in the USA, the corporate sector, and massive information sharing with the public and other countries, we will continue to hear about massive increase in gang stalking like never before in this decade due to mass funding for these programs. I can see the advertisement now. Are you a go-along to get along? Do you like to target innocent people for a profit? Do you like to suck up to authority? Then we have a job for you. You will get paid under the table gift cards. You can do whatever you damn please. However, just remember that you too are under surveillance. And when we've had it with you, you will be incarcerated and be dealt with worse than the person that you are stalking for profit. Because, we don't give out all this money for nothing. We want to get our money back in the future. So we'll make sure that we will use you until we use you up. And then we will take back from you everything that we were forced to pay so that you stupid people could work for us. And in the UK, the Jenny Patton and Jane Clift cases are good examples of community-based harassment. Patton's partner and children became victims of organized stalking and unwanted spying at home by the council. They surveilled them to ascertain if they'd been cheating the school catchment system. recording their movements in detailed surveillance forms. Council officials described their car as a target vehicle. A subsequent ruling by the Investigative Powers Tribunal, IPT, reprimanded Pool Council for the family's harassment. Months after their persecution, the Pattons struggled with frustration and anxiety, having to reassure their young children who were still complaining that people were following them. When I got roosters, I thought they only did that in the morning. I was wrong. After Jane Clift reported vandalism and threats to the council, she astonishingly found herself on a community watch list. She says they were whispering, collaborating. People were scurrying everywhere she went. Everywhere I went, hospitals, GPs, libraries, anywhere. Clift later successfully sued Slough Borough Council and obtained financial damages. Well, good for you. Jane's situation proves the existence of various databases that ostracize ordinary citizens who've done nothing wrong. These local notification systems work like neighborhood watch programs. They're prevalent in many Western states, offering a pool of victims for the perpetrators. Despite never being convicted of a serious crime, victims are now prejudged, giving the perpetrators plausible deniability. These two cases show that the local government is the perpetrator in some instances of gang stalking. I think that's the way it is here in Jackson County, Kentucky. I think my local criminals are being funded by state grants or possibly private contractors. The Tampa Bay Times found the sheriff's office in Pasco County used a computer algorithm to build a list of people, including children, then subjected them to monitoring and harassment by deputies as part of its predictive policing. I remember this. In fact, I think this is on my channel somewhere. The predictive policing. Another of its programs used information from the school districts to produce a list of children perceived as likely to become criminals. Is that crazy? Data that contributed to the inclusion on the list included the students' grades and abuse histories. Oh, that is horrible. A former police officer recounted a directive to make their lives miserable. I'm sure that somebody around here has got that directive on me to make my life miserable. That's okay. At some point in the not-too-distant future, I have vowed to make your lives miserable. Yeah, I have vowed to make your lives miserable. The way you've made mine. 7 Saturn Square. Previously, NOCO's former deputy Cliff Balzer said his superior filed a false internal affairs complaint against him in 2018 and threatened to euthanize his canine partner, and then go on social media and blame Balzer for the dog's death. Oh, that's just really mean. In 2021, residents targeted in the program sued the sheriff's office, claiming violations of their constitutional rights. I think everybody should sue the sheriff's department. Conclusion. Psychiatry has conspired with law enforcement to weaponize the mental health laws in Western states to cover up state targeting of innocent civilians for revenge and non-consensual research purposes. And when they say non-consensual research purposes, that's non-consensual experimentation. That includes covert, invasive body procedures, including implants, including surgeries, including harassment of your animals. Targeted victims have felt the brunt of that weaponization, and public investigations of the cozy relationship between the two are paramount. When the targeted individual program is fully exposed, psychiatrists will hopefully receive instant karma for their misconduct. Dereliction of duty is the first crime committed by law enforcement after victims report the offense, as well as refusing to investigate. And I'll add that it's conspiracy against rights, under the color of law. Title 18, Section 241 and 242. The police typically embark on a smear campaign to construct a false narrative of mental illness against the complainant. Even worse, evidence shows that the police and intelligence services are both running these harassment networks through a web of snitches and private contractors, which all intents and purposes are part of a sprawling national surveillance network. The Bow Wow family has been spreading slander about me on Facebook, on Twitter, under my posts on on YouTube. Yes, we've even caught her. Thank you, subscribers, for finding her Facebook page and recording her abuse of me with the whole community. Thank you. That little bitch, she'll be exposed too. Don't worry. It's coming. Even worse, evidence shows that the police and intelligence services are running these harassment networks through a web of snitches and private contractors, which to all intents and purposes are part of a sprawling national surveillance network. Even if the targeted individual moves to a different location, the harassment continues. But it varies depending on whether you're in a rural area, in a city, in the suburbs. It depends on if you move to a more affluent area than the one that you're living in. It's very different. I've mentioned it so many times before that when I lived at 52 Sutton Drive, Manalapan, New Jersey, a home I lived in for 30 years as original owner, 07726, Monmouth County, there is no way in hell that they would be able to throw grenades on my property. No way in hell. There's no way in hell they would be able to stuff large dead skinned animals in my mailbox in the suburbs. No way. So a lot of what happens to me here would never happen in the suburbs. If there were dogs let loose in Manalapan, New Jersey, what are you kidding? Those dogs would be picked up in a heartbeat by animal control, sent to the animal shelter, and in order to get that dog back, you'll have to pay a fine because they were wandering around, and a release fee. Going to cost at least $150. So no, there are a lot of things that would never happen in the suburbs that happen in rural crime networks like here. It is difficult to ascertain whether these crimes are officially sanctioned at the very top by the government or whether it's deep state rogue network of police, intelligence services contractors, and military personnel alongside other government officials perpetrating these atrocities. And it's possibly a mix of both. And what I'll say is that here, where I live, it absolutely involves the magistrate, county lawyer, the sheriff, the property valuation manager, even the goddamn trash collector, and my Bow Wow neighbors, the criminal neighbors that stole my gate and chassis, the bitch who lets her chickens run loose tearing up my property, and who gives me a pregnant cat, the bitch that slandered me to Dr. Rebecca Caleb Wilson to refuse giving me a veterinarian appointment while they're dumping animals on my property that are not spayed and neutered, that keep procreating here, fighting amongst themselves, howling, beating each other up because no one will give me a veterinarian appointment to get them spayed and neutered. Well, you know what? It's no longer my problem. It's now your problem. And when I move, it will continue to be your problem, including all the raccoons that you dump on my property. I have trapped 11 raccoons this year so far. 11! And I still have at least 8 to go. Where did they all come from? They're being dumped here. Certain felonious actors must hold critical positions in government agencies to nullify investigations and cover up these crimes, like the F. Masons. The F. Masons. With rising awareness of these transgressions, more significant pressure will be placed on the impeccant actors within the government and will force them to speak out and expose these atrocities and ferret out the criminals sitting in high places. That is the end of police involvement in organized stalking and microwave attacks. And this is written by, let me scroll up here, these 29 pages. I'm so glad I was able to complete this. Psychiatry and Law Enforcement Involvement in Organized Stalking and Microwave Attacks by Dr. Stephen, Stephen Marvin. He has a Master of Science, BA with honors, and I don't know what this is, a PG certification. I don't know what PG is. Maybe police something certification? I don't know. Whatever. But anyway, thank you so much for writing this article, Dr. Stephen Marvin. And I hope everybody gets something out of this. You are not alone. And you are not crazy. You are not mentally ill. But they are. They are the criminals. They are the psychopaths. They are the master manipulators. They are the thieves. They're the ones destroying you and your property. They're the ones that are spreading witchcraft in your homes and your property. They're spreading insects like the ones floating around on my laptop right now. They're the ones harming your animals. They're the ones that are experimenting on your pets. The military-industrial complex, the fusion centers, Infraguard. It all starts, though. It all starts with the FBI watch list and a group of sadists, opportunists, jealous people that want something that you have and they don't want to pay for it. They are envious, jealous predators. Please leave a comment down below. I look forward to them, and I will talk to you guys soon.